Hi everyone, this is Dr. Omkar Bhatkar, and I am here today to talk why is theatre so significant for us humans? Now, exactly how the theatre came into being is not known, but when we look at the anthropologist James Fraser, he did believe that theatre is a ritual which has come from the animist cultures to the civilized one in a very palatable format, which we call theatre. Theatre is certainly a ritual, it is a collective experience, but can it be only reduced to a ritual? Is a question that is left open to discuss. While it is indisputable that the tradition born in the ancient Athens have dominated Western theatre, but it is impossible to state with certainty what was theatre like even a few years before the appearance of Aeschylus' earliest play, Persians, which was written in about 472 BCE. If we come to the Asian context, the No theatre of Japan has been handed down through families for generations and generations, and for hundreds of years, the theatre in Japan has remained the same in that context. When we look at India and we talk about Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, which is a treatise on dance and drama, then it may be as old as Aristotle's Poetics, which is about 4th century BCE. Of course, I'm not here to discuss the origins of theatre. My concerns for this talk are: why is this ancient art, which is about 2000 years old, so significant to us even now? What is it about theatre that makes it intrinsic for us humans to talk about? And in this talk, I shall be looking from an individual, social, political, and a philosophical point of view why theatre matters. Why is it significant for us in modern times? Now, there are a number of things which one already knows about theatre and how it benefits us at a individual level, at a practical level, like how the quality of a person's voice becomes better and more resonant. Pronunciation becomes clearer because of the use of the heightened language. One even overcomes stage fear. Clearly, vocabulary becomes larger. The ability to read body language becomes sharper. And one also becomes a better reader or even a listener. With regard to the mise-en-scene of the play, one learns about the timeline, the setting, the costumes, the period, properties, color palette, and many such aspects of the play that have got to do with the visual vocabulary of the play. With this, one can develop a fine understanding of timeline, of setting, of a visual vocabulary of its own, a language of images and representation, of symbolism. You play a character that you might not agree with, but you have to put aside yourself. You have to put yourself in the circumstances of another and walk around in that shoes for a while. You learn dialects, diction, accent, and perhaps even a bit of foreign language. You may develop an ear for music, cultivate a taste for aesthetics. You learn how to interact and collaborate with many others to create a living three-dimensional work of art. You get to connect with real people. You're able to create another world with theatre. But is that all? Theatre is way beyond these skill building techniques. There is much more to theatre. Of course, it helps us with a lot of skills, but I'm also trying to look at what it does beyond the skill building. I'm trying to look at the nature of theatre in how it contributes in making us better beings. How theatre makes us human and provides us with a broader perspective of the world without the othering of the other. And when theatre contributes to this humanness, to this human project, to the sense of being with others, it makes us holistic. It makes us more human, more empathetic, and all the practical benefits mentioned earlier are just byproduct of this process. So what is the process of theatre that contributes to the individual, social, political well-being? I shall be talking this in 10 points. 1. Theatre makes us live with other people. Theatre, unlike painting or poetry or sculpture, cannot be created all by yourself. Some of us are very comfortable in our own company, but theatre as an art demands the collaboration of people, of the director, the actors, the musician, the technician, and so forth. It is an art of people coming together to create something meaningful, something that they believe in. This is a synergizing process and not a product. Theatre combines the creative ideas and the abilities from its participants. And some ideas may not work, and some may work. Some may work on an individual level, some may work in a combination, and therefore theatre is a game to let go something, hold on to something, to take a little from here, a little from there, and create something new altogether. No ideas are final here. Ideas are tested, and some work and some don't. Therefore, theatre is always in a process, and there is no product, much like life. Much more of this journey is not fixed, it is in process, and therefore the play keeps happening. There's nothing fixed about the play. But to create this play, one has to learn to play with humor, cultivate a listening sense, respect ideas, and build an ability to adjust and try working on a same journey, on such a journey where different minds helps us to become open towards differences, accept them without resistance, and it slowly helps us to cope with stress of being with a varied set of people, and slowly it molds us to be part of a larger enterprise rather than an individual. An enterprise of human consciousness striving to create an experience, a unique experience to an unknown audience. So theatre therefore helps us trust people. It helps us in opening our blocked selves, and it liberates us to feel once again free. It also opens us for running the risk of being broken once again. But in this process of trust and brokenness, it only makes us understand ourselves and those around us. It helps us to communicate, to reach out. We learn to express, we learn to build bridges, and theatre helps us to open our closed areas, or areas that we didn't know exist within ourselves. And theatre lets us breathe freely and live freely with other people without judgments of any kind. 2. Theatre brings us together to feel, to acknowledge. In theatre, the audience engage in collective behavior, and that subordinates their separate identities to that of the crowd. The crowd personality is never as rational as the sum of its members' intelligence, and it's much more emotional. Individuality is lost in the audience, and there is a shared we feeling. Members of an audience lose their powers of independent thought, and unexpected reserves of passion come into play. Laughter becomes infectious. Grave and solid citizens, as members of an audience, can be rendered helpless with mirth by jests that would leave them unmoved if they were left alone. Which is why probably Plato was a little worried about drama. Anyway, the audience is able to feel the pathos of the story by being one with the play. It is a group of people sharing a story, agreeing to let everything else in life be momentarily put aside while they share an experience. In this process, theatre helps us to experience the pain other than our own. Theatre makes the audience emotionally and sometimes even intellectually connect to the drama, which otherwise may not be possible outside the theatre. In such a way, theatre creates empathy and tolerance by making us feel and acknowledging what we usually miss due to pressures of our everyday lived reality. 3. Theatre keeps you on your toes that something can go wrong. When we see live theatre, there's always the possibility that something could go terribly wrong. Something could go wrong on the stage. It usually doesn't, but the threat is there. And this keeps the audience and the actors and technicians on their toes. And therefore, it adds a level of immediacy that you just can't get in any other medium. Everyone is in the same moment, at the same time, with the anxiety of the unexpected. However trained is the artist, every time on stage, it feels anew, and the anxiety of the unexpected remains for the artist as well as for the audience. Repetition of such performances cultivates a sense of confidence. The confidence that can be applied in nearly every aspect of their future. In such a way, theatre remains a continuous risk and therefore a continuous adventure. 4. Theatre lets you imagine. In a world that is addicted to technology, theatre provides an outlet for making creative choices. In fact, most often we have shoestring budgets and we're expected to deliver the best. But this also helps us in making better and informed choices, looking for resources, making efficient use of whatever is available. Sometimes it's like thinking, but not just with your head, with ideas, but thinking with your hands in creating effective scenes. Also, this reminds me of Padma Shri Ratan Tiyam when he was asked, आप फिल्म क्यों नहीं करते, नाटक ही क्यों करते हो? His response was, मैं नाटक इसलिए करता हूँ क्योंकि फिल्म में हीरो आसमान की तरफ देखता है और कहता है वो रहा चांद। कैमरा आसमान की तरफ, चांद की तरफ मुड़ता है और थिएटर में हजारों बैठे हुए लोगों को पर्दे पर सुंदर चांद नजर आता है। मैं नाटक इसलिए करता हूँ क्योंकि मेरे नाटक में यूं होता है कि मेरा हीरो पर्दे की तरफ इशारा करता है और कहता है वो रहा चांद। थिएटर में बैठे हजारों लोगों की नजर उस तरफ मुड़ती है और हजारों लोगों को चांद दिखाई देता है। पर्दे पर कुछ नहीं होता, उनको उनके मन में छिपा हुआ चांद दिखाई देता है। मैं हजारों लोगों को उनके मन में छिपा हुआ चांद दिखाने के लिए नाटक करता हूँ। Theatre brings discipline. Theatre is not just a role play, unlike the term play. It is a rigor, a discipline in art cultivated with sincerity. Working in theatre, playing, practicing, and performing develops a sustained focus of mind, body, and voice. Theatre isn't only about the techniques such as voice modulation, memorizing, voice projection, body movements, etc. But theatre is also about shedding the I of the ego and becoming one amongst the team members. There are diverse theatre groups, but most of them don't believe in theatre as vanity. And therefore, everyone, including the actors, engage in holding the broom and first cleaning the rehearsal space, being punctual, not wasting time in small talks, doing homework, etc. Theatre has a lot more to do with the ritual of discipline and sincerity. Further, emphasis is laid on rehearsals and practice. Rehearsals enhance the performance and smoothens the journey for the technicians. Practice in theatre cultivates a sense of confidence. Even if there is a scope for improvisation, theatre is the rigor to be as sincere to the drama as possible. 6. Theatre is ephemeral and yet immediate. It can never be exactly recreated because the audience is always different, and no two shows of the same play are alike. And the actors experience the play every time in a different way. The story is the same, but every time the play unfolds, it plays differently. It's like magic. It happens and disappears, never to happen again in the same format, in the same way. The play can be staged another time, but everything won't be the same. In this way, everyone involved has a distinct and a unique experience that can never be replicated. Also, theatre is immediate. The actors feed on the energy of the audience, and vice versa. Theatre is a place where energies are exchanged between the performer and the audience, and therefore, theatre is immediate, unlike cinema, which can be static. Theatre is a shared fiction that for a short time, it feels like reality. In a theatre, audiences' hearts beat together as one. Theatre is essential to us as human beings in this world because there's nothing like the liveliness of the performance that disappears, leaving only memories in the minds of those present. This ephemeral nature of theatre makes us accept the transient nature of life, to let existence be. 7. Theatre reminds us that we are not alone. Theatre reminds us that we are not alone. When we make theatre, we not only share the space and ourselves with the teammates, but we also share the experience with fellow audience members. Movies and television don't have the same intimacy or sense of participation. Sharing an experience with live performers and live audience members is not only valuable, it is necessary for human connection. Like Janelle Snow puts it, it's like a sporting event of the heart, where you're gathered in a space, often shoulder to shoulder, breathing the same air, experiencing the same sensory input, and letting your thoughts and emotions go on an unpredictable ride together. And therefore, theatre constantly reminds us that we are all together, and our pain is the same because each one of us is able to feel the pain as a universal one. And therefore, theatre promotes social discourse, dialogue, potential social change. Theatre is a cultural phenomenon that demands that society examine itself in the mirror Theatre treats us not as isolated beings. Theatre is a coming together of a community to listen, to understand the vulnerabilities of ourselves, our strengths, and our weaknesses. 8. Theatre seeks the truth. The way theatre speaks of pain, of universal pain, and creates a shared bond, similarly, theatre also probes us to ask questions. Theatre may not have all the answers, but it has the beautiful ability to make us think. Theatre makes us think, it constantly makes us aware, and therefore, a theatre artist has a responsibility towards the society. We must never forget that theatre is against propaganda. It is a form of truth. Theatre does not belong to the spheres of polemic and ideology, but rather it seeks the truth. It questions power and it makes us aware of liberty. Like John F. Kennedy puts it on October 26, 1963, at the Amherst College, strength takes many forms, and the most obvious forms are not always the most significant. The men who create power make an indispensable contribution to the nation's greatness, but the men who question power make a contribution just as indispensable, especially when the questioning is disinterested. For they determine whether we use power or power uses us. So, interpreting and paraphrasing the thoughts of John F. Kennedy from the spectacular speech that emphasized on deep dedication to the arts and celebrating the role of artists in society, we can state that theatre is a means of saving power from itself. When power leads us towards arrogance, theatre reminds us of its abuse. When power corrupts us, theatre cleanses. When power creates injustice, theatre seeks justice. When power brings inequality, theatre values equality. But theatre establishes the basic human truth which must serve as the touchstone of our judgment. In such a way, theatre is a search for the truth that on its path, it questions ideology, inequality, and abuse of power. And therefore, theatre becomes a liberating force. 9th, theatre is not just expression of excess energy. Now, art has been interpreted by metaphysicians, philosophers, psychologists, sociologists, anthropologists, and from several others' point of view. So, for a metaphysician, art may be the manifestation of some mysterious idea or beauty of God. For the sociologist, it may serve as a social function of resistance. For a psychologist, it may be the excess of stored up energy. For Freudians, it may be expression of one's deeper, hidden, unconscious by external signs. For art connoisseurs, art may be production of pleasing objects. However, art or theatre is an art form, is not simply production of drama or production of sophisticated drama. And theatre is not just expression of excessive energy. Theatre is not just a space, an art form to empty the bottled up or repressed self. No, it's much, much more than that. Theatre is a means to bring people together, to join them in the same feeling indispensable for the life and the progress towards well-being of the society. Theatre is about creating a humanitarian space for all. And that brings us to the 10th point. Theatre makes us human. There are several definitions and approach towards art, but I find art as understood by Leo Tolstoy most convincing. For Tolstoy, if only the spectators or auditors are infected by the feeling with which the artist has felt, that is art. So if the spectators are infected by the feeling with which the artist has created and felt, that is art. And taking this thought of Tolstoy into consideration, theatre becomes a form to transmit feelings that one has lived, to bring these feelings to stage, and the people watching it are infected by these feelings, and they also experience it. In such a way, theatre becomes an infectious, shared experience. The audience and the performers agree to suspend their disbelief and they journey somewhere together. In fact, theatre is the only place where people will let you lock the door and sit in the dark together with strangers listening to stories. Stories that talk about what it is to exist, what it is to be, what it is to live life, what it is to be human. Theatre is where we work out our ever changing definitions of humanity, where we seek empathy, hope, and love. It is a momentary kind of a community, and we don't have enough of it in everyday life. And theatre is therefore necessary to cut out the separation between beings. It's a freeing of a personality from its separation and isolation, and uniting each one of us with others in the same space, where the othering stops and we reach a universal form of humanness. And that is why I feel theatre is significant for us at an individual level and as a species of the human race. Yes, theatre benefits to us on an individual level, but it also does a lot more to us when you talk about us as a human being. It makes us better versions of ourselves, and in doing so, it creates a better society, possibly more just, more equal, and more kind. That's it for now, me talking about theatre. Thank you for listening to me.